Good morning around the Diamond family. Baseball Bill and Grand Slam Sam are back for another rousing episode of Around the Diamond this week. We have a ton to go over, including a couple of moves. A couple of things are happening, and they're moving. That's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, Baseball Bill, as always, how are you doing on this fine Saturday morning, good sir?
To quote my good friend Cosmo Kramer, giddy up.
Giddy up it is. We are not even going to delay. We
No
can't. I
delays.
think we got some really good stuff to talk about to the fans this week. What do you think?
Amen. Amen. It looks great. Looks great.
And we will not even waste it. I will get us going this week on the AL. Bill was kind enough to take it last week. I'll let him take the NL this week and when it comes to the standings. But not much has changed in standings from last week to this week. A couple of mid teams in each division moved from second to third or from third to fourth and vice versa. Rays still holding strong in the AL. They took that 13 game rousing run they went on and just let it soar. So they're only rocking on a 3 game, only, 3 losses right now with 17 wins. Or competitive in that AL East battle, keeping it within basically a 3-way tie with the Orioles, Yankees, and Blue Jays. Red Sox rounding that division out. Taking it over to the Central, Twins only holding a half a game lead right now over the Guardians. Rocking that 11-9 record over the 10-9 record with the Guardians. Tigers, though, shockingly are only, 3.5 to 4 games back. But the Royals, I think, are doing what we expected them to do right now, not really picking things up. Unfortunately, bottom of that division. But for those first 4 teams in that division, still rocking pretty strong. And then taking it over to the AL West, you got the Rangers holding high in that division. I think not really shocking many people, but I would have actually expected them with what they did this offseason to be maybe 2 or 3 more games in the win column than the loss column. Astros right now with the lonely A's rocking out the bottom of that division at that 4-16 record. And we are going to talk more about the A's a little later in the episode. Bill rounded out the AL standings. Anything quick here that's kind of a shock to you at this point in the season, or is everything here kind of like I expected it?
No, the only 2 shocks, or 1 shock, 1 comment. The only shock is that the A's have 4 wins. I mean, being 0-20 isn't completely out of the realm of their possibility. But like we had mentioned before, and like I've mentioned before on this and other places, the AL East is the division to mess with. And if you look at it, it's the only division in all of baseball where every team is over 500. So, I mean,
That is
it's
true.
it's a division to be messed with. And look who's in second place, by the way. Don't sleep on the Orioles. I'm telling you, don't sleep on the Orioles.
We've been saying it since the predictions podcast, my friend. Do not sleep. Actually, we've been saying it since we did our Around the Diamond about the sleep on Baltimore. You can never sleep on Baltimore. But
Exactly.
Bill, take me through this NL. Take me through the NL real quick.
NL, Braves leading, Mets only half a game behind. Again, Marlins, shocking that the Phillies have started out a little slow, but they'll bounce back. Brewers, not surprising. Cubs are actually playing a lot better than I anticipated. Pirates, look at that. 7 games over 500 already. Cardinals, it doesn't surprise me where the Reds are at. The National League West, what's going on over there? Like every team except for the Diamondbacks is losing record. And if the Diamondbacks go on a 3-game losing streak, you're going to have every team either at 500 or losing record, which is insane because you've got 2 incredible powerhouses and then the Giants over there. So you've got the Padres, you got the Dodgers over there. Listen, I don't know. I don't know. But when it comes to the National League, the Braves, Mets don't surprise me. Phillies do. Brewers doesn't surprise me. Cardinals does. Pirates do. Diamondbacks starting out. But again, Diamondbacks are playing small ball. So small ball is where you're going to win these days. And you got to be able to hit the 5-run home run. Yes, I agree. But you got to be able to play small ball. And, when we show you some standing or some statistics, you'll understand why that's the case. Remember these things. So, Sam, what do you think? What do you think of the National League?
Yeah, I think, looking at it, I almost like watching the Nat. I mean, look, I'm a traditionalist by trade, and I've always appreciated what the National League does with baseball over the American League. Um, I like that there's not one team here where there is one division that's soaring over everyone else. Every division in the National League right now is tough and is tight. I mean, yeah, you've got a lot of teams that are on big winning streaks. Look at like you mentioned, look at the Diamondbacks, look at the Braves, look at the Brewers. But nothing is out of reach for any team in this league, which is what I appreciate about the National League a little bit more than the American League, depending on the division you're looking at. So while we're about 20 between 19 and 20 games into the season, I think we're starting to see more and more the rule changes being in effect, impacting certain teams and and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how we continue this trend throughout the rest of the season. Is it going to continue, or is it going to take a step back and kind of balance itself out to be kind of what it's been in years past?
Okay, fair enough.
So, we talk about the National League standing, but we got to talk about some of these statistics right now because, we are seeing some things. I don't think baseball has seen this early in ever. I think ever. So, just going through some of these right now, I'm going to take the batting. Bill's going to take over the pitching. So looking at these batting leaders, you're seeing a lot from the East, especially in the batting average leaders. I mean, look, you got Miami, you got Luis Arias rocking with a 438 batting average. Matt Chapman's going on a 380 batting average. I mean, the National League East is really taking the batting averages and just soaring through it. Maybe it's the weather getting better on the East Coast a little sooner than they expected. Who knows? But I think with the speed that these pitchers are having to go at, batters are able to stay warmer rather than pitchers being able to get enough rest between pitches. So I think that's really impacting how these batting averages are so high right now. And then looking at these RBI leaders, I mean, again, we're only about 20 games into the season, and a lot of players right now have an RBI, at least one RBI per game, which is crazy to think about. That there have been this high number of runs so far in baseball, and this early in baseball. I mean, normally you see this like the first, because people are still getting off of that spring training kick. Now every game almost looks like they're really high scoring, and some are even just blowing the other teams out more than normal. I mean, Bill, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, offense sells tickets, defense wins games, but some of these batting averages, obviously, I would love to see them stay this high, but we know that they're not. The RBI ones, those are killer because you figure if this trend were to stay the same, and you have 6 months in the season, Yordan Alvarez would have 130 RBIs. Matt Olson would have 120 RBIs. I mean, those are numbers that are insane. And figure we still got 6, maybe 7 games left in April, so it could be a little exciting. Could be a little exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But Bill, what about these pitching stats? I mean, we talk about the speed of pitchers now, but there are still some pretty impressive things they're doing on their side.
Garrett Cole finally woke up in the Bronx and said, "Hey, I don't want these people to hate me." Starting out 4-0. Again, I think he's got one more start in April, so he could start out 5-0. Um, you know, that trend's not going to continue. Obviously, he'll have one bad game here or there, but Garrett Cole's on pace for a 20-game win season. Joe Ryan,
Mhm.
again, Shane McClanahan. Notice that all these guys that are listed here, and there's one other one who pitches today who will probably get his fourth win because he's pitching against Detroit, is Zach Gibson. But notice that these teams are competitive and they're scoring runs. So these pitchers are not only getting the run support that they need, but they're actually performing very well. Strikeout leaders, these are insane numbers. Again, Zach Gallen with 39 strikeouts already. If he's got another 20 starts in him, I mean, he could have over 200 strikeouts a season. That's insane. Those are insane numbers to talk about. Garrett Cole,
Mhm.
Pablo Lopez, Spencer Strider. Again, the offense is great, but you got to have your pitching there. And so I talked to a guy this week with a podcast that's going to air on Tuesday, and he said he's an old timer, and he had said, without a bullpen, you have nothing. And he says
Yep.
when I was growing up, it was very rare that you had maybe one or two bullpen arms, but you didn't have a full stacked bullpen. So yeah, a lot different, a lot different.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, a lot of these things will balance out, but if things keep going at the rate that they're going, like you said, Garrett Cole could easily have a 20, even a plus 25 game, winning season, which, it's insane to think about now that these guys could have such high, win rates, win loss records as a pitcher. And real quick, do you think that the rules with the pitch clock? Do you think the pitch clock is impacting how some of these pitchers are keeping their win totals high, or do you think it's more the offense on the other side?
No, it's the offense. Garrett Cole's getting a lot of run support right now. There are pitchers out there that aren't getting run support but are throwing good games. So the pitch clock will always have something to do with it. But as you mentioned before last week, we're always going to have a scenario where the pitch clock is, going to get adjusted or whatever it might be. So yeah, yep,
All right. Well, we talk about stats and we talk about these new pitch clock, these new rules going into effect, and we have to talk about the stolen base thing real quick because right now we're at almost 400 stolen bases. Last week we read stolen bases in 7 days, which is insane. Meaning we're on track right now for about 133 stolen bases per week on average, which is just ridiculously high to me. I think this is insane. Again, I'm going to bring it back to these rules. Do you think the limitation on two pickoff attempts has,
of course,
been
of course, of
the driving factor, or do you think
course.
players are just willing to be more aggressive now?
Of course, of course. Players know that the pitcher has to pitch within a certain time frame. Players know that there's only two pickoff attempts, including step offs, right? And so players know that they can time it up. And if you've got a good base runner like this guy in this pitcher, Mr. Mookie Betts, he can sit there and time it. And he can watch you, and he can watch the pitch clock and see it. Okay, I can go now. And more and more players are going to get thrown out less and less because of the bigger bases, because of the pitch clock, because of these things. So we're going to see stolen bases get skyrocketed this year. I mean, again, going back to Baltimore being in second place in a very competitive NL or AL East, you have two guys on here with a combined total of 17 steals between Mullins and Mateo. These two guys are running like crazy, and they're running like crazy because they can. 17
Mm-hmm.
stolen bases. Some clubs don't have 17 stolen bases combined, and you have it in two players. So, yeah,
Oh, and yeah, it is insane. I do think the stolen bases, I think the base size increasing has been a driving factor. Of course, the two pickoff attempts are always going to be added into that. But beyond that, I think players with the increased offense being like something that MLB is driving, I think it's also just forcing players to say, we're just going to be more aggressive in our play. We may not be asked to steal. I'm going to steal because I think I got it. And I think I've clocked it right. I can pick it. I can make the pick off attempt. So I think you're right. I think all of the rule changes are going to go into effect. But I also think just the offensive push has been a driving force for people to start stealing more and more as well. And on top of that, we also have to talk about these home run numbers. I mean, we went up over 150 home runs in 7 days. Over 150 home runs in the last 7 days, with Pete Alonso hitting his 10th home run, becoming the MLB home run leader just last night. So I'm going to take this from the perspective of, is the pitch clock and these pitchers not going to be not having enough time to rest microly between pitches? Is that increasing this pitch count, this home run count? Or again, the push for offense has been so high.
Yep. Yeah, it's again, the pitchers have to figure out mentally how to do this, right? They have to learn how to freeze the batters. They have to learn how to work this pitch clock, and they haven't done terrible at it, but they haven't done the best of jobs. Obviously, some of these guys are you take away the shift, and some of these guys have a lot more they have a lot more confidence in their abilities. Max Muncy is a perfect example of that. So is Devers. You take away the shift, and these guys have a lot more confidence in what they can do. And so some of that has to do with that, right?
Yeah. No, that I totally agree with you. So we got some fun topics we're going to talk about, but looking at these injury lists, I think it's been imperative. I think it's easy to say that the rule changes have increased the injuries. We're seeing a lot more guys out with elbow injuries, and especially in the pitchers. I think because these pitchers aren't getting enough time to rest between their pitches, and the play of game has gotten so much quicker, pitchers are not having enough time to rest. I mean, you've got guys out with a number of elbow injuries and even hamstring injuries. I mean, just taking a look at this list, right now you got, Connor Overton's out with an elbow injury. Chris Martin's out with a shoulder injury. Alex Reyes on the Dodgers is out with a shoulder injury. Giancarlo is out with a hamstring injury, and Robbie Ray out with an elbow injury. This list was so long, we had to make it 2 pages this week. I mean, Bill, what are you seeing on this list? I mean, do you see anything that real quick that's just an eye pop to you that's like oh my God?
Well, not on this one, but I mean, obviously, we, Carlos Rendon is a huge hit uh, for the Yankees. Giancarlo Stanton was a huge hit for the Yankees. There's a couple of players on the previous list that are huge hits, but you can't, you got to expect this stuff to happen, and you have to play it as though you're expecting it to happen. So you got to work around it. I mean,
Yeah.
Robbie Ray in Seattle, and look at where Seattle's at right now. They're struggling mightily. So.
Yeah. But the one real quick thing I think that's interesting is that because, and the 3 guys I'm going to mention are all pitchers, Jeff Spriggs, Matt Foster, and Anthony Bender, all out for the season. All out for the season, all with elbow injuries. So I think you're right. I think these pitchers need to start finding ways of making the pitch clock work for them. When the batters to allow the batters and the runners to stop letting the pitch clock be more of a we're going to win this battle rather than the pitcher saying we're going to win this battle. I think once that starts to balance itself out, things will start to get back to normal. But we had 2 big topics we wanted to talk about today, Bill. Am I right? There were 2 main things we really wanted to talk about. We got to start holding these guys freaking accountable.
Why would you?
Umpires in baseball right now need to be held more accountable than ever. And I think they are really starting to take a lot more leeway and a lot more flexibility with calling things that they shouldn't be calling. Bill?
Yep. Yeah, we saw it this week. We saw it this week with Max Muncy. I mean, not Max Muncy, Max Scherzer. They tossed him out of the game, and it's not awesome. I mean, these guys. The one thing about Major League umpires, the one thing that they cannot do, and that they have been doing a lot of lately, is they've been inserting themselves into the game, and you cannot do that. You can't. You're there to call balls and strikes. You're there to call out and safe. You're not there to insert yourself in the game. People aren't coming to watch you. They're coming to watch the athletes. They're coming to
Yep.
watch, um, you know, they're not coming to watch you as the home plate umpire, you as the first base umpire. They're coming to watch Max Scherzer pitch. Period.
Right.
You have to understand that. And so these guys do need to be held accountable. There have been some terrible ball and strike calls this season, and in a number of games that I've watched, terrible ball and strike calls. But
Mhm.
what are you gonna do about it, right? There until they're gonna start holding these guys accountable, there's nothing that you're gonna be able to do about it. This rule, poor Max. Okay, Max says that it was sweat and rosin. I believe him. I watched him grab the back of his neck. I watched him grab the rosin bag. Not a big deal. When you get tossed for sticky substance as a pitcher, it is a mandatory 10-game suspension and a $100,000 fine. Now I know Max makes a lot of money, but when you didn't break the rules, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
100%. And, it goes to something that I have mentioned to you on numerous occasions. I have always been about holding everyone accountable. Anything you should be holding people accountable. But I feel as though, especially in sports, umpires, referees, um, you know, whoever you are in an officiating position, always never get held to the accountability level that they should be held to. And I feel like this is a problem across all sports. I think it is most egregiously done in baseball, however. And I think it does. I don't know if it's them instituting mandatory, you know, recertifications on a certain per year basis, um, or if they just need to start cutting ties with certain umpires that are making egregious calls. Because the same umpire that called out Max Scherzer, I'm not sure if you know, since the beginning of the season, he's called out 3 other pitchers for the same exact thing. And in these pitchers going so quickly, they're sweating more. They're doing exactly what Max did, touching the back of their neck, which is sweaty, going to the rosin bag to dry their hand up, and now their hands become sticky. What are you going to do? Make the rosin bag. And that will eliminate the stickiness problem. They want to do that, go right for it. Or put a towel out there for the pitcher. So this way he can wipe his hands or take the towel and wipe the back of his neck to avoid any sweat, and then he can go touch the rosin bag. But umpires need to start being held more accountable. I've always been an advocate for that, and the longer it takes for MLB to do something about it, the quicker it's going to push fans away. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But on top of holding these guys accountable, we had some major news for one specific MLB team, and it has to do with the location right behind it. Party time in Vegas. Party time in Vegas. The Oakland A's have been approved to move to Las Vegas, Nevada. They are officially going to be on the move. Bill, you are the West Coast guy, so you've heard more about it. What are you hearing are the next steps for the Oakland Athletics?
So the Oakland A's have
In a
purchased.
minute and 30 seconds.
You've never done anything in 30 seconds on this show, Sam. So
I try not to.
So the Oakland A's were approved to move to Las Vegas. They did purchase a piece of land not too far from Allegiant Stadium, which is where the Raiders play. And at the end of that they're going to build a $1.5 billion stadium. So they already have the land for it. Construction sounds like it's going to start here pretty soon. What I've understood to have happened, and I don't, somebody can fact check me on this, but from what I'm reading and what I'm understanding from Oakland A's fans, is that at the end of the day, they could potentially be moving there as early as next year. They might play in a minor league ballpark that holds 9,000 seats until their stadium gets built. But the Oakland A's will not be the Oakland A's for much longer. They will be the they will be the Las Vegas A's really, really quickly. And so, yeah, so they're going to be moving. It's going to be interesting to see how the city of Oakland handles this, because now they've officially lost their NFL team, their NBA team, and now they're going to lose their MLB team. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. The fan base is pissed. And I've talked to a couple of the people in the fan base, and they're saying they don't even want to go to the Coliseum anymore. So Oakland may end up drawing 800 to 1,000 people per home game. And that's
for the rest
ridiculous.
of the season.
Yeah, for the rest of the season. So
yeah, I find it to be crazy to think that there could actually be a baseball team that will hold less than 1,000, that will have less than 1,000 attendance. But with the way things are looking, it's probably going to happen for Oakland. They'll probably start doing single digit price tickets. Who knows? You might be able to even get 50-cent tickets for a game. Just because they're going to try to put some seats. But
and think of
it's exciting to see this.
Think of the history. Think of the players that have played there. Think of how sad this whole concept is. Think of the fact that, you had guys like Reggie Jackson start his career in an A's uniform, albeit not in Oakland, but in an A's uniform. He played there. Ricky Henderson. Think of some of the guys like McGuire.
Mark McGuire. Yep.
Yeah. And Jose Canseco.
Yeah. It's going to be sad to see them go. I think we love baseball for certain teams. And Oakland, unfortunately, over the last couple of years has been one that's needed to make a move. It hasn't been working out in Oakland. The city hasn't been happy with the team. The team has been trying to make it work, and the city has not been able to. So unfortunately, the fans have been the one that have had to take the brunt of the heat on this. And it's sad to see it go, but I think you will see a similar trend as to what happened with the Raiders. It will happen to the A's. I still think you will see a lot of Oakland not moving, but still remaining A's fans, just Vegas A's fans. Now, I think the biggest thing they have to figure out is do we mimic the same colors as the Raiders, or do we stay with our green and yellow and white? That is a debate for another day, though, because we are literally running close on time.
Actually,
we have a couple of quick.
Actually, Sam, we're actually out of time. So for you Top Hat Rivalry followers, thank you for joining us. There's more that we can talk about going forward. There are watch parties coming up. We've got merchandise and things like that. But we appreciate you joining us today. We want to keep this to a half-hour session. Unfortunately, we ran a little long at the beginning, but we are good. So, Sam, we will catch everybody next week, correct?
Hey, we will see everyone next week. We'll see you on the field. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye.